Welcome to Astro Rahu Channel English. I'm your host Vishal Sathye. Today we'll discuss for the Sagittarius Ascendant what happens when Ketu comes in the 6th house in the sign of Taurus. If you want to see this same episode in Hindi, then go to Astro Rahu Channel Hindi. And if you want to know about the identification and benefits of Ayurvedic Herbs, then go to Health Channel. Ketu in astrology is somehow one of the most difficult topics or difficult energies to understand. This probably because Ketu doesn't have the head, and probably that is the reason why it is so difficult to understand, because you cannot address him, you cannot see him, you cannot see in the eye of Ketu. So it is a very complex topic. It is a very malefic energy like Saturn, which especially is known for punishing by the stick like Saturn, because actually it is a incomplete energy. It is only the body, it doesn't have the head. So it represents some kind of a incomplete karma of the past life, which you have to complete in this life. Some kind of a karmic backlog is represented by Ketu. So now here for the Sagittarius Ascendant, Ketu is in the 6th house in Taurus. This is a very difficult position for Ketu, and Ketu here is known to be debilitated. So the definition of Ketu, or the way one has to deal with Ketu changes a bit because of his debilitation. I'll tell you why. Because in a normal Kundli, in a different ascendant, we would say that don't go towards Ketu, go towards Rahu. This is normally what I will suggest. But for the Sagittarius Ascendant, because Ketu is in the 6th house, and 6th house is a Artha house. It represents the practicalities of life. The 6th house, the 10th house, and the 2nd house. And it is in the 2nd sign. So for the Sagittarius Ascendant, you have to go towards Ketu, and you have to fulfill that karma which has been left out in the last birth. So for the Sagittarius Ascendant, I usually advise otherwise, because what happens here is Rahu here is in the 12th house, in a watery sign of Scorpio. And by just following Rahu, usually things are not achieved in life easily, because for Rahu, things become very difficult to achieve. In the 12th house, in the watery, unpredictable sign of Scorpio, there is no ground. And to achieve something very quickly in such a volatile environment is quite difficult for Rahu. So success has to be found out by pursuing Ketu and Rahu simultaneously. So what happens here is Ketu here for the Sagittarius Ascendant usually represents a scenario where probably a person is very creative, because Rahu is in such a creative position, 12th house, Scorpio. And probably this person might be a poet or a composer or an artist, very creative, but he is unable to find his way in this life, and he is unable to get the career. He is unable to creatively succeed in the creative fields and earn the big buck. That is why this position of Ketu represents a person who is suffering on a day-to-day basis, because from 6th house we see day-to-day activities. So here Ketu makes the person suffer due to probably choosing a wrong career. So probably you can see a person who is creative and he is probably stuck up doing, say, tax consultancy or some very practical business where he doesn't like to do that business, but because he wants to earn his living, he has to do it, and he continuously is doing this practical work, and he's applying his Ketu, and he is continuously suffering and hoping that someday things will change and he will be able to pursue that Rahu in the 12th house, and someday, one day will come when he will be able to establish himself in a creative career. This is what happens with this position. And the problem is that from here Ketu also aspects the 10th house, and this brings misdirection because Ketu is blind. So this misdirects him many a times in his career options, or if he tries to do something new, if he tries to put in any effort in a new field, he is many a times misdirected and things don't happen the way he expects them to happen. Again, Ketu from here also aspects the 2nd house, and Ketu here is in the 2nd sign, 2nd house and 2nd sign. So these two things represent monetary aspects. So here again the person has a problem that he is not thoroughly energized by the objective of earning money. He is more like satisfied with fulfilling his creative where Rahu is placed. So many a times he does not pursue seriously the goal of earning money. This also happens. So this is also one reason why he has problems in his life, in his career. But the positive point over here, a silver line to a dense cloud, is that Ketu is an incomplete energy. So it is called the Mars of the past life. And that is why, even though he doesn't like to pursue the career that he is in, and he's suffering from it, and he doesn't want to do the profession in which he is stuck up, but somehow he has the knowledge within him to do that work. So even if he doesn't want to do what he is doing, he has the past knowledge, inherent knowledge in him to do that work successfully. This is the positive point in this. So the solution for this placement is to do your work, to pursue whatever field you are in, even if you are stuck up, to do it for the sake of it. So generate vairagya and do that just for completing your karmic backlog, and pursue that Ketu thoroughly. And once you complete that karmic backlog, then Ketu will release you from that. And while doing so, also practice yoga, do asana, do pranayam, consume Ayurvedic herbs, be a vegetarian, and that will help a lot. Ketu will slowly release you from that karmic backlog. This is the solution for this placement. Whatever I told you up till now, this is not the case if Mars aspects Ketu or if Mars is conjunct Ketu. Because if Mars is with Ketu or conjunct Ketu, then the whole energy changes, and Mars will compel Ketu to act and to succeed. And if Ketu is alone without the aspect of Mars, then this is true what I told in this episode up till now. Apart from this, Ketu can also represent a scenario where things are so overwhelming that Ketu, though he is a malefic energy, he represents suffering. That is, he represents a scenario where the person is just suffering because he is unable to take any action, or he is unable to do anything about it. For example, Ketu might represent what I told you, choosing a wrong career or being in a wrong career, such a difficult scenario. Or apart from that, it can also represent some kind of mental or physical problems. Say it can also represent addiction. It can represent vices as well. It can represent, this position can represent a person who has a terrible vice of masturbating. Especially this is true if Moon is also conjunct Rahu in the 12th house in Scorpio. Then this might represent a person who is mentally ill, who is also physically ill, and for this ailment he is unable to find a solution, because Ketu represents an energy, as I told you, which one cannot understand, which one cannot see, because Ketu doesn't have the head. So if a person is suffering from such sexual vices, and if he approaches the modern doctor, then the doctor is unable to provide any solution for him. He will say that there is nothing like masturbating, vice of masturbation, and whatever you are thinking is false, and the modern thought, this is old age. He will say that this is old age belief that having too much, doing too much self-abuse is not self-destructive. This is old age thought, and you should come out of it, and doing all this does not destroy the body, does not destroy the mind, and the doctors will be unable to provide any solution to him. So Ketu here in this position represents all these kinds of diseases, either mental or physical, where doctors cannot provide a solution, because it represents a disease which cannot be seen, apparent, which is not apparent, and which a disease which cannot be understood. This is also represented by this position. Apart from this, Ketu here is in a sensitive position because he is in the 6th house, and from the 6th house obstacles are seen, enemies are seen, and Ketu being an energy which represents misdirection, and Ketu here in the day-to-day life doesn't let the person think before acting. So, and it represents misdirection. So Ketu here can also make a person go commit some kind of a criminal wrongdoing just out of hurry, or just because of the fact that suddenly he has a spur of his angry, and he's unable to think properly for that moment, and he suddenly does some thing which is illegal. This can also happen with this position of Ketu. I can go on and on with this position. Sometime in future we'll also do a detailed video on this. We'll do a second part on this. So we'll end the episode over here. This was my analysis about Ketu being in Taurus in the 6th house for the Sagittarius Ascendant. If you liked this episode, please share this video. This is very important for me. This is Vishal Sathye signing off for now. Bye.